Get that water out of the goddamn huddle. I tell you when you get a fucking water break.
Welcome to the Buccaneers Observer. This is Ralph Phillips.
I'm Molly Bay.
Today's January 9th, 2020. Not Jameis Winston's vision. That'd be 2,400, something like that.
I don't think it's that bad. Maybe, hopefully not.
Slow news. Not a whole lot to talk about. Of course, every time I say that, we end up running our mouths for an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what we're here for. What you got?
We got any fact checks or follow-ups?
No.
Okay. We were perfect.
Or lazy, whichever.
Yeah. All right, got some games coming up this weekend. Quan Alexander will be active for the 49ers game against Minnesota Saturday at 4:35 p.m. He's going to be used sparingly. Now, if you don't recall, Alexander suffered a torn pectoral muscle during an October 31st, 2019 matchup against the Cardinals. This was thought to be season-ending, but now here he is.
Convenient.
Hey, he wants to play in the playoffs. I don't blame him. I want to play in the playoffs, too.
We'll send you and let you be the kicker.
Put me in, coach. Oh, wouldn't that be a sight? Mike Caldwell, the inside linebacker coach with the Buccaneers, and Ben Steele of the Falcons will serve as the head coaches for the 95th East-West Shrine Bowl.
Is that some college thing?
Yeah. Apparently it's a bowl between Shriners from the East and the West. It's like the rappers, East Coast, West Coast. Is that still a thing? I don't think so. After they killed off Biggie and Tupac.
Yeah, that quashed it.
They killed it all. Carson Palmer was on the Rich Eisen show talking about Arians and Jameis Winston the other day. Now, if you don't recall, Carson Palmer played with Arians at Arizona.
Was he there the whole time BA was there?
Yeah.
Okay.
He ended up getting injured, I believe, in like 2000, the last year, or the second to last year that
16,
Arians was there. So he didn't play
17.
the whole season. If I recall correctly, that'll be a good follow-up. He did say that Winston's going to have a good year next year if Arians keeps him. Palmer had a career high of 22 interceptions in his first year with Arians. He had much fewer interceptions in his second year. He said it takes years for the offensive players to get the hang of the system.
Yeah, he said it's really complicated, and like the receivers, they can run multiple routes.
Yeah, they got a lot of option routes.
Right.
And he says Arians' offense has twice as many plays as most teams.
Yeah, I picked that up too. He said most teams have like 150 on their play sheet, and BA puts in 300.
That's crazy.
Which is an incredible that they do that per game. BA doesn't like to call the same play twice.
Right.
So he's got to have 1,000 plays in his repertoire.
But we got to also remember that Byron Leftwich is the offensive coordinator, not Bruce Arians. So we don't know how much of Bruce Arians is putting into the play calling.
But I think it's still his system.
Yeah. Carson Palmer was very high on Jameis Winston.
I listened to Pat McAfee talk about Jameis, and he was not as high. He thought Jameis should be grateful for getting $20 million.
Yeah, well.
He's like, you throw 30 picks, not the good 30 for 30. You got to take what you can get. So for him to be asking for $30 million, that's like Patrick Mahomes money.
He ain't wrong. Jameis Winston had his good streaks, and if he would have ended on a good streak, then most people would be like, yeah, okay, we'll give him some money. But, to end the season on a pick six. Against a division opponent fighting for second place in the division. That was a kick in the balls. And you could tell
we didn't let them come back.
You could tell Bruce Arians was so pissed at that press conference. He was not happy with Jameis Winston. Yeah, we did let him come back. Did you know that the Bucs defense faced the most pass attempts of any team in the NFL last year? 41.5 attempts per game, which is 3.3 attempts per game higher than the next best team. That's according to Chris F. on Twitter. So that means the Bucs defense had to defend almost 10% more passes than any other team in the league. Well, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
Well, that's because they couldn't run on us at all.
That's true. Yeah, that accounts for most of that, and having a young secondary.
Mm-hmm. Who were batting the balls down like crazy. I swear there was a record in there somewhere about passes defense. I've never seen a secondary bat as many balls down as we did.
They should have caught them.
Yeah. Well, who was it? Pro Football Focus said that our secondary dropped more interceptions than most teams had.
That's crazy. Yeah. Scott Smith had a cool stat in one of his articles that if you divide the season in half, so the first 8 games, and you look at the yardage differential, so how many yards we put up versus how many yards the other teams put up, in the first 8 games, we had 40 more yards than our opponents.
Combined?
So it's like we had, I'm just throwing a number out here for an example. We had 2,040 yards to their 2,000 yards.
Okay.
Total within 8 games. The last 8 games, the differential was plus 823.
Wow. That's 100.
In the Bucs' favor.
100 yards per game.
I know. Isn't that insane?
We should have won all those.
I know.
We won most of them.
A lot of them.
Not
enough.
How many did we win in the second half of the season? 5? I think we won 5. 5-3.
Yes.
Okay, that's going to be another fact check follow. 38% of our games were played against playoff-bound teams. We had six of our games were against playoff-bound teams. I looked it up, and I started going through all the other teams. Most of them were around 5 or 6, so that's about average.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not really a badge of honor for us.
No, I thought it would be much higher, but I only did the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and the Eagles. The Eagles had 5, Seahawks and Cardinals had 6. So,
okay.
Yeah, I figured. But I'm going to be talking about Greg Schiano's time here quite a bit. I remember when in Greg Schiano's first year, 2012, I think we played 9. Half of our games were against playoff teams because I think 2 of our division opponents, the Panthers and the Saints, or it might have been the Saints and Atlanta, both went to the playoffs. So that was
yeah, that'll skew it.
That's 4 games right there. Speaking of Greg Schiano.
Let it go, Ralph. It's been 7 years.
Has it been 7 years? Good Lord. Oh, what a debacle that was. Matt Rhule had his press conference. If you're not familiar, Matt Rhule is the new head coach for the Carolina Panthers, or the Kittens as we like to call them. He was a head coach at Temple. He has very little NFL experience. I think he was an offensive line coach for the Giants.
An assistant offensive line coach.
Yeah, so very little NFL experience. I watched the press conference because everybody was talking about how great it was. Matter of fact, people were saying like his first sentence was like the most impactful statement they've ever heard.
There was so much just coach speak.
Oh, God,
it sounded like every other coach's press conference.
Yeah. What really stood out to me at the press conference was that I think it was the GM introduced everybody, but he introduced Nicole Tepper. That's the girl I was talking about in the last podcast.
Oh, okay.
So they are married.
Okay.
It is crazy.
That's the only thing you got from that press conference.
Not the only thing, but it really popped out. I was like, Nicole Tepper, who is that?
Oh.
Because the general manager was talking about we have staff here to help people with questions after the conference or whatever you need. And he mentioned Nicole Tepper was one of the people. So I was like, whoa, is that girl I was talking about? That David Tepper, the owner of the Panthers, he left his wife of 30-some years, and then he hooked up with this young girl. And there's absolutely no information about her. Nobody knows anything about her. They don't know her nationality or her age. Nobody even knew if he was married. If you go to Wikipedia and you look under David Tepper and you read it, they said he's married to Nicole, but then there's citation needed because nobody knows. Well, apparently he is. So that just really stood out to me because we had just talked about there. But that David Tepper, he reminds me of Kelsey Grammer with no hair. That's a weird dude, man.
He looks to me, remember the dinosaurs? The show in the 90s.
I'm like, I ain't that old.
You rode him to school, Ralph.
Yeah, I remember the dinosaurs.
He's got that weird shaped head.
Yeah, and the weird lips. Lips. He also reminds me of like Steve Ballmer, and he's like a cross between Steve Ballmer and Steve Jobs.
Who's Steve Ballmer?
I want to say he's the owner of a basketball team. I might be having him confused with the owner of the Seattle Seahawks. Anyhow, yeah, these rich guys. And
was he the Microsoft guy? I
can't remember. That's the owner of the Seattle Seahawks, Microsoft guy. Or it was. Didn't he die? Here we go. Fact check follow up. But Steve Jobs used to, or Jobs, whatever. What was it? Jobs?
I say Jobs.
God, I can't remember.
English. He
just died a few years ago, and I can't even remember how to pronounce his name.
Jobs, I think.
Okay, we'll go with that. It's like, is it a GIF or a GIF?
It's a GIF.
Well, anyhow, they like to have all this, energy and be cool and all that. And
with the little headset, the little microphone.
Well, they made a big deal about David Tepper before they introduced him, that he really loves music. So he's going to be introduced on stage to Imagine Dragons. And, they made a big deal about it. He picked this song out, and so he'd come up, bouncing up on stage and everything. It's like, give me a break.
There were like 12 people in the room, and they were all like, okay, do we clap now? This is weird.
Well, he's the richest owner in the league, so there's probably quite a few people in there.
That are paid to clap?
Yeah, they're like, we love you, David. But anyhow, I'm been paying attention to this Matt Rhule being hired, and everybody's just gushing about this guy. Just gushing about him. And then it reminded me of when Greg Schiano was hired. They're almost exactly the same. They were both college coaches that turned their programs around. Greg Schiano did great at Rutgers, had them in, championships, or not championships, but bowls. They hadn't been to bowls since dinosaurs walked the earth. And Rhule had, he changed his program around. It took him a couple years, 2 programs. Yeah, so, they're kind of the same. But the media treated them so different. So different. Matt Rhule is being treated like he's the next coming of Michael Jordan. Or Patrick Mahomes, who is now the new Michael Jordan.
Per Troy Aikman.
But Deshaun Watson is now the new Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
So, somebody's got to
No, Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson is now the new Patrick Mahomes,
right.
Who Patrick Mahomes is the new Michael Jordan.
Yes.
Yeah, so Rhule is getting, all this great praise and everything. Listen to some of the headlines. These are some of the headlines people wrote when Greg Schiano was hired as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 1, why Greg Schiano hiring is so surprising. Now, that article goes on and just lambasts Greg Schiano. The next headline, Greg Schiano breaking promises made to Rutgers.
Ooh, that's messed up.
Oh, it gets worse.
Rhule got bought out of his contract.
Right.
Tepper, that's part of his salary, his deal.
Right.
Wow.
Another one, Greg Schiano, a thief of the worst kind.
Whoa.
Yeah. Another one, is Greg Schiano fit to be an NFL coach? And of course, we know the rule in journalism, when you ask a question, the answer is always no. And of course, in that article, they went ahead and basically said, no, he's not fit to be a head coach. And then after, I think it was our first game against the Giants, the kneel down thing, there was 5 articles that said Greg Schiano was regarded as a bully around the NFL well before kneel down incident.
Oh, for God's sake.
These are some of the articles, the headline, and the media hated Greg Schiano. We've talked about this on the podcast. Yes, and it's one of the reasons why we are so adamant to hold the media accountable to the crap they say, because they did not like Greg Schiano. Joe Bucs fan even had an article years after Greg Schiano was fired talking about how the media hated Greg Schiano from day one. And it was because he did not treat them like they were the grand poobahs. He didn't give them media access to the players. He restricted their media access. When he was at Rutgers, he would keep them cordoned off the field, because his philosophy was, I want my guys to focus on football. I don't want them, kissing butt to the media or getting involved in drama and all that mess. Didn't work out for him. I just found it very strange. And that takes me to another thing, talking about the media. This is off season. You're going to get a lot of media stuff from us. This is when we focus on the media. A YouTuber named Trust My Clutch. I hope that's not a slang term for something I'm not aware of that the kids are saying now. He called me out for the podcast last time because I was saying, I don't care if the players put babies on spikes. It doesn't matter to me what they do off the field. All I care about is that they put good performance on the field. It's entertainment to me. He called me out and he said, it's basically nuts. Don't say you don't care if our players murder people. And he's right. He's right. I was being hyperbolic. I was going over the top.
There is a line. Of course there's a line.
Right. And it really, I wasn't really talking about the players as much as I meant to be talking about how the media portrays the players. In the phrase putting babies on spikes, that's an old saying I got from the comedian Eddie Izzard. What was the name of that stand-up? One of my favorite stand-ups of all time, that show.
Follow up.
Yeah, that'll be a follow-up. So let me break this down a little bit further, what I was trying to get across. I believe in role models really, really, really strongly. Role models mean a lot to me because I grew up and I had a crap ton of role models. I was big into, people are going to thrash me for this, Mel Gibson, Clint Eastwood, Ozzy Osbourne, if you can believe that. Not a really good role model, but I had a lot of role models that I tried to emulate them. That's what you do with role models when you're a kid. You see them doing stuff and you want to be like them, so you do the same things. I don't want players to be bad people. If I was dictator, all of our players would be fine, upstanding young men who contribute to the community. That's what I prefer, by far. I don't want a bunch of ruffians and hooligans and, people putting babies on spikes. No, that's not what I want, because I know how much of an influence role models have on young people. And the NFL, sports in particular, they're huge role models to kids growing up. So yes, I would prefer them to all be fantastic human beings, because I think it would proliferate throughout society. When you do have a bad person who is a role model, that makes tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of bad people trying to emulate it, being bad.
And football is where a lot of young men get their role models. And so we want people that are going to set a good example for our boys.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. But we've talked about this on here as well in the podcast quite a few times, that the players on the field, these NFL players, these are not the best NFL players in the world. It's just like the basketball players in the NBA are not the best basketball players in the world. I have personally seen on courts in neighborhoods guys that are amazingly, fantastically incredible basketball players. The difference is those guys didn't go to college. They didn't get the good grades. They didn't go through the gauntlet that these professional athletes have to go through. Now, the NFL, you have to go through a lot. You have to go through years and years and years of basically internship where you're practicing, you're playing with no money, and you have to be able to do that. You have to be in a financial situation where you can do that to begin with. And then you have to stay out of trouble. That's a big one. You have to be able to speak well. That wasn't such an issue back, in the 80s, 70s, 60s, and all that. They didn't care how you spoke. But now there's so much media that you have to be well-spoken. You have to be, they want family men. There's just a gauntlet that you have to go through. Now, the guys on the NFL football field are not necessarily the best football players in the world. They're just the guys that have made it through that gauntlet and have got the chance to go out there and play. A large part of that gauntlet is staying clean and being a good role model. However, when it comes to the actual entertainment aspect of the sport of football, it is their on-the-play field that matters. That's the entertainment value. What I have an issue with is how the media harps on every little thing the players do.
Right, there's these constant purity tests, and guys will get dragged through the mud. I mean, who's making that call? What's bad? What's...
Right. And it's generally the media, and they have their pet things they like to go after. One, don't treat animals bad. Don't do that. Don't treat women bad. Don't do that. It reminds me of Ray Cruz. If it was up to me, we would have shot that guy in the middle of the street. That was just disgusting. But the Ray Rice incident, I'm like, man, come on. I know people are like, oh, you can't hit a woman and everything. Man, I saw her spit and hit him. They're a married couple. She did not want him to get fired, all that good stuff. So, the media really hypes up the things they want to hype up. They don't hype up. How many NFL players have you ever heard that got kicked out of the NFL for getting into a bar fight with another guy? You don't even hear about it generally. It happens.
No, not usually.
It happens quite a bit.
Ezekiel Elliott, how many times has he done that?
Right. Yeah. And he's on camera pushing guys, punching guys, all that stuff. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. They have their pet things that when you violate one of their sacred cows, that's it. You're done. They're going to come at you with daggers drawn. That's fine and dandy. They can do that. What they're not doing, the media, is, paying attention to these guys' welfare, their best interest. These players, what they want to do is paint them out as to be bad guys, because we all know you write a negative article, it's going to get more clicks than if you write a positive article. It's almost, I think the math is 12 times more, somewhere along those lines. So, these media guys are always looking for negative stuff to write about. They miss out on a lot of crucial stuff. They like to say that, oh, hey, we're trying to point out bad apples, but they miss bad apples all the time that don't pop up on their specialized radar.
Aaron Hernandez is a perfect example.
Kevin Winslow Jr., perfect example. This guy was in the league for years and years and years. He was on the Buccaneers.
How many teams? 4 or 5 teams?
Yes. And not a media person in there talked about his sexual deviance problems. It was well known in the locker room. The guy carried around a blow-up doll and masturbated in the locker rooms, in the showers.
Watch porn on the plane.
Watch porn on the planes, yeah. Media just, they didn't talk about that, or they didn't know about it. Either way, it's bad on the media. Now this guy's sitting in prison for raping women. If the media would have picked up on that early on in his career, or at any point in his career, maybe he could have gotten some help, It was blatantly obvious to everybody that knew Kellen Winslow that he had those issues. Daniel Taylor-Nashim. He was a defensive end who played 3 seasons with the Buccaneers from 2011 to 2013. He started 26 games for us, registered 4 sacks, 54 tackles, 10 tackles for a loss, 15 quarterback hits. This guy was not a second stringer, third stringer. He wasn't a practice squad guy. He was a starter for us. He was drafted by the Eagles in the 3rd round in 2010. Unfortunately, injuries kept him out of all but 6 regular games with them in the 2010 season. He ended up on drugs. Ativan, Tramadol, Percocet, Vicodin. He lived in an extended stay hotels while he was with Tampa. He became paranoid and distant while he was with Tampa. He would not contact his family members for months. Then he would call from random phone numbers and not sound himself, according to his sister, Mary. After being cut by the Buccaneers, he developed a deep paranoia and was extremely ashamed of failing in the NFL. We know all of this because he kept journals. He insisted he was being followed and thought maids were going through his trash, so he moved hotels constantly. He complained that someone was using his credit card, only to realize that he had made the purchases but had forgotten. He insisted someone was inside his computers, so he destroyed his laptop, bought a new one, then did it again and again and again. It became a recurring thing with him. He would buy a laptop, use it, destroy it. Like I said, this was all according to his journal and his family members. In May 2014, Daniel left a voice message in which, in a faraway voice, he asked his aunt, I'm going to butcher that name, Philly Monahan, to call him. Like a concern, she called the police in Tampa to ask if they would check up on her nephew. Monahan sent a text to her sister, Daniel's mother, with an update telling her that Daniel had thanked her for sending the officers to check on him. This was all while he was in Tampa now. Taylor-Nashim's former agent, Eric Kaufman, said his client told him he was lost without football. It's an exact quote. Yet he canceled a trip to Buffalo to work out with the Bills when given the opportunity. Taylor-Nashim changed his cell phone number. Hotels evicted him for not paying. When hotel workers entered his units, they said it looked like a tornado had blown through. Now, he moved back to Hawaii in the summer of 2015 and had to move in with his mother because he had spent all of his NFL money. A neuropsychiatric profile composed by Dr. Jesse Mez of Boston University said that he drank 3 to 5 times a week, quote, frequently excessively, end quote. There's been players from the Buccaneers anonymously that have said that Taylor-Nashim did have drug problems while he was with the Buccaneers. Unfortunately, he died of a drug overdose at a friend's house on October 29th, 2017. Was found face down, dead, after they had sat up all night drinking vodka and taking pills. Of course, this only come out because the media wanted to blame CTE. They blamed it CTE for that. But here's what I want to get at. If we're going to write a 500-word article about somebody leaving their dog on the side of the road and then talk about how they need to be thrown off the team and, everybody gets their knives out and everything, why aren't these same people whose job is to report on these players looking into stuff like this? Why didn't they help this guy? Or at least write an article like they love to do about his troubles so that he could get help, so that somebody would have helped him. But apparently, nobody cared. The guy's broke, going from hotel to hotel, busting up laptops, getting drunk, on drugs, in Tampa. Now, if he would have left a dog on the side of the road, the Bradenton Herald, the Tampa Bay Times, he'd be on national media, how bad of a person he was for leaving a dog on the side of the road. That's where I have an issue. It breaks my heart to hear stuff like this. And I really, it's like with Kellen Winslow. We were really upset when we heard about that, that he got arrested. We had multiple podcasts on it, and we're like, how did we not know? I mean, we're avid Buccaneer fans. There's not a whole lot that goes on with the Buccaneers that we don't know about that is disseminated. These media guys have inside access, inside information. Why aren't they reporting on stuff like that? Not to shame these guys, not to make everybody grab their knives and want to come after them, but, to say, hey, maybe this person needs some help, before they go and rape people. I'm not saying it's the media's fault for, Kellen Winslow going out and raping people. Good Lord, no. But, if you're going to write negative articles about people, why not write negative articles about people that you can try to prevent them from doing bad stuff like raping people or killing themselves? So that's my thing. I know. I'm stepping down off my soapbox now.
Good soapbox.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I wish I didn't have to say it. It drives me crazy when I hear about this, the ex-players. Deshaun Jackson was one where we were like, what? How did we not know all this stuff that was going on in the locker room? The media knew about it. They just decided not to tell anybody.
They held on to it for a year.
They held on to it until they were ready to get rid of him. And then they come out with all this stuff about him kicking over displays at Christmas and, 2 years ago and all this. And you're like, what? How come I didn't hear about that 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And it takes me back to Greg Schiano, too. They wrote all these articles about him. I mean, it was article after article after article about, the MRSA and the team vote counts and the running Freeman out of town and all that. And then come to find out years later from the same media that wrote those articles, all of it was untrue. I'm not going to say a lie. I'm going to say untrue. So the media has an agenda. And frankly, I get tired of it. That's why I say I don't care if a guy's putting babies on spikes as long as he's putting something on the field. Because what's on the field, I can see that. What comes from the media, don't really trust it a whole lot. They're hiding stuff. They're making stuff. The thing with Nacho, he says that they sold the dog or they gave it to somebody else and somebody else dropped it on the road. Or, they said they had to get rid of it because the wife was pregnant, all that good stuff. I don't think Nacho's a bad guy. I don't think he, it's not like he was out there gutting the dog and slitting its throat and throwing it in the river.
Pulling a Michael Vick.
Yeah, right. So my caveat with that is, I can see what's on the field. Off the field, if it goes to court, evidence comes out, then I can make a judgment. Ray Cruz, screw him. Aaron Hernandez, screw him. All these other stuff, though, I'm like, man, there's two sides to every story. And
there's bad people everywhere, but there's also good people who do bad things or get caught up in bad things. So to me, you can't just make a judgment call based on the limited information that is often put out in situations like that.
Yes, and everything is, there's very few things in life that are black and white. I mean, even murder. You could say, oh, if I murder somebody, that's a bad thing. Well, what if they were, coming to kill my kid? Then that's not a bad thing. And you go, that's a good thing. So, there's two sides to every story. And generally with the media, you only get to one side. And the one side is basically we want to paint everybody in a bad light. Unless, of course, they like you. And then they're going to paint you in a good light. The difference between Greg Schiano's introduction to the NFL and Matt Rhule's introduction to the NFL is a perfect example. So, Trust My Clutch, thank you for that comment. Thanks for calling me out on that. I did not mean to give the impression that I'm fine with having a bunch of murderers on our team. Now, maybe
if they're murdering on the field.
There you go. Field murderers. Maybe breaking and entering guys I could have on the team.
I don't know. That's what Kellen Winslow Jr. was doing at first.
Yeah. Gosh, how long did he get? Did he get sentenced?
I don't remember.
Yeah, we forget. That's another fact I can follow up.
You got any more soapboxes?
Nope. Greg Allman has an article on The Athletic about... It's theathletic.com. Go there and check it out. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe. Greg Allman is, in my view, the best, no BS beat reporter for the Buccaneers. He's got an article on what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offseason shopping list could look like. He breaks it all down, how we can keep, who we need to keep, who's out there that we could get, and all that. Good article. Go check it out.
I'm almost ready to start thinking about free agency and looking into it, but then I'm sad.
I don't want to lose anybody on the team.
I don't either. So I'm a little nervous to start looking into it and seeing that there's no way that we can keep everyone.
I'll be so sad. So sad.
So sad. Do you want to talk about playoffs?
Yes.
All
playoffs.
Right.
Playoffs.
Not the Buccaneers, sadly.
I know. Next year. Next year, baby.
For sure.
Definitely.
I watched the last, before we get to playoffs, I watched the last In the Current.
I didn't see the last one.
Okay. It was good. It was a good summation of the season, and they had Godwin and Evans on there. And a side note to the side note, the guy that narrates them is the same guy that does the podcast with Scott Smith, the Salty Dog.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
He's the media guy.
I heard the voice, and I was like, I think that's the same guy. I might be wrong, but in any case, Mike Evans made the point that he said this is the best team that he's ever played on, and he really wants to stay there, and he's excited for next season.
Mike Evans said that? Best team he's ever played on?
Best team he's played on.
We should look and see if he says that at the end of every year.
I don't want to know. Just lie to me, Mike.
Lie to me, Mike.
And then I also watched the last Mic'd Up. It was Levante on the Atlanta game. And it was good. all the Atlanta guys were coming up to him because, he got his 1,000 tackles in that game. So they were all coming up to him afterwards and talking about how awesome he is. And I've been playing against you for 8 years and you're just a monster. And, lamenting the Pro Bowl that he didn't make it again. But it was cool to see.
I like Levante. It was the only jersey I bought for like 5 years, I think.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, I've never had a quarterback jersey. Thought about getting a Winston one. I go back and forth with that. I'm like,
I have one. That's like my only. I have some older ones that were like discount. I don't want to talk about.
Barrett Rudd.
I know.
Rude.
That was my first one. Was a Barrett Rudd jersey after he was off the team.
Shh.
I can't get rid of him though. All right, playoffs. You ready?
Playoffs.
We didn't do predictions last week, so let's go ahead and do them. Saturday, the Vikings take on the 49ers at 4:35. What do you think about this game?
Got to go with the 49ers.
I think so too. They've got home field advantage. The Vikings pulled it out against New Orleans, but is that because New Orleans wasn't playing great?
New Orleans' defense is not near as good as 49ers' defense, and the Minnesota was, from what I could tell, they used a lot of tight ends in blocking, and they were able to block, get Cook out around the edges.
They had a lot of success with the run game.
Yes, especially around the edges. They ain't going to be able to do that with the 49ers. You ain't going to block none of those guys with a tight end. I mean, yeah.
America. Do not block elite defensive ends with the tight end.
Yeah, so I got to go with the 49ers. And I think they've got, a good team. They're on fire. They do not want to lose. I know
the first round, the first game that they played.
Yeah.
They can't lose this one. I will pick the 49ers as well, so that means the Vikings are probably going to win.
That's right. We went 1 for 4.
Yes.
Last weekend.
Awful. Man. Embarrassing.
We suck at football.
Do we even watch football?
We don't know a thing about football.
No, nothing. Okay, the next one will be fun too. Saturday at 8:15, we got the Titans at the Ravens.
Oof. Man, you know what? I'm going to say the Ravens for this one. They're just a good blocking, tackling team. Very physical. But so is Tennessee.
And they're both run heavy.
Yep.
Well, no, I say that, but aren't the Ravens up there for passing?
I don't think so.
I think they have the most passing touchdowns.
No, they might. I don't know.
I mean, they do score so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to go with Baltimore. They've just been steamrolling everybody this year. And, Tennessee has really been a surprise to everybody.
Absolutely. And I don't think it's necessarily a testament to them, like, that we say the Ravens are going to win, because Tennessee's been playing really well. I just don't think that they're going to be able to overcome.
It's going to be a good smash-mouth football game either way.
I hope so.
Either way. If they can make it to where Tannehill has to throw the ball a lot, they'll definitely win.
But they've got Derrick Henry, too.
Right, yeah, they've got to control Derrick Henry, but he's just so big and brutal, man.
He's hard to bring down. Mm-hmm. He's so big.
Yeah, big guy. Reminds me a lot of Adrian Peterson in his prime.
Yeah, me too.
All right, who's playing Sunday?
Sunday, we've got the Texans at Chiefs at 3:05.
This one, man, I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know anything about the Chiefs. The Texans are just, to me, they're very meh.
Yeah, meh.
But
they keep winning.
They came back and beat us. With Buffalo, they had a comeback last week. So I think that they could pull it out.
So who you picking?
Ooh, I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I'm going to take the home team. Although I know nothing about them. I've not watched a single game with them this season.
All right, I'll make it different. I'll just say the Texans. It's a toss-up there.
That'll be our...
Yeah, that'll be our only game we care about.
Okay, divisional round on Sunday, 6:40 p.m. We've got the Seahawks at the Packers.
Seahawks.
Me too.
But it's at Packers. Lambeau Field is
tough place to play. It's going to be cold. I wonder if there'll be snow.
Seahawks play in the cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to take the Seahawks.
Agreed. So really, the Texans-Chiefs is the only game we care about.
Yep. Molly is still in it. She picked Minnesota to go to the Super Bowl. I had picked the Saints to go to the Super Bowl.
And we both picked the Patriots from the AFC.
So we got knocked out quick on that one. I got knocked out by the Vikings, who Molly had picked. So
there's no way they're going to make it to the Super Bowl.
She's still in it.
Crazy.
They've got some talent, and I like Mike Zimmer as a coach. I mean, he's a good coach.
Yeah, he's turned the organization around, and they've been contenders since he's been there. I love Case Keenum in the locker room afterwards. Last week, did you see it?
What happened?
He goes, and I got just one thing to say to you gentlemen. You like that?
Oh, God. Oh, I hated when he said when he did that to us. And it was all over the media.
I know.
And it's still
went
a meme.
viral.
It's still a meme.
Yeah. It's fun. Nobody remembers it was against us. They just remember he
I
did
remember. That's where the pain comes from.
Salt in the wounds.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for us. Everybody enjoy your football this weekend. Get drunk, but drive safe. Uber it or stay at home. That's usually the safest way to do it.
That's how I like to do it.
Sit there and lament that the Buccaneers are not in the playoffs once again.
Next year's our year.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. First time I've ever said that. We're going to the playoffs next year, baby.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, never heard that come out of my mouth. Super Bowl. All righty. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us. Till next time.
Go Bucs.